So I'm really glad to be here with Joel Gage from the Aegean Solidarity Network to spend some time, a little bit of time sharing some stories and talking a little bit about his amazing work with that organisation. And I think just we're going to explore a little bit about the roots of it and how it all began for you. I think we'll start there and we'll take it from wherever you see. So where did this all start for you? Where did it begin?
Oh, it's quite a long story, Matt, and I think. Oh, hello, by the way. Sorry, thank you for taking your time out to speak with me.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's. I think it's quite a powerful story for me because of how the whole experience changed me as a person and my focus and my direction with my life, really. So, a long time ago, about 20 years or so ago, I used to live on a small Greek island in the middle of nowhere that no one's ever heard of, called Leros. And it's a beautiful place. It's really remote and there's nothing there. And I go back usually every year for a couple of weeks for a holiday and see my friends from when I lived there. But 2015 was slightly different. So obviously during the summer, you may recall on the news about the situation in Greece with refugees and asylum seekers arriving. And some images and some footage that I'd seen on the television about some of the riots in Kos, which is an island quite near to Leros, sort of quite unsettled me. Sort of traveling on my own and my confidence in sort of a situation, because what we were seeing on the TV was actually quite difficult to watch and uncomfortable to watch with what was going on. So to travel to Leros, you can't travel there directly from the UK. You have to go via a nearby island and get a boat, or go to Athens and get a domestic flight over, or the ship. And usually I used to sort of transit through Kos and get the boat. But because of what I'd seen on the news about this sort of situation there, I was a bit sort of frightened and nervous to go on my own through the island, through Kos. So I went through Athens and arrived on Leros, and my friends that I was staying with said, you need to go down to Laki, which is a town in the south of the island, and see what's happening with the refugees there. I was like, oh, okay, not sort of knowing what to expect really. So the next day I sort of settled in. I got my motorbike, my little moped, drove down, and I just remember it instantly stopping and literally my jaw hitting the floor at sort of what was there before me. So at the time, people arriving were sort of held in the port police yard. It wasn't a big space, but it was absolutely rammed with people. I remember one portaloo sort of to the side of it, which seemed to have a trickle, I assume, of overflow running through the camp where people were sort of sleeping. I was overwhelmed at the noise of the kids and the babies, and seeing how many elderly people were there, families, which was very different to what we'd seen on the news. I was a bit sort of shocked, and it took quite a lot of time to sort of process sort of those initial things that I'd seen, and the sounds and the smells, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Why did your friends? So I'm just rewinding because I did.
Yeah.
They sort of feel you should go there. Was it because they wanted you to see it? They wanted someone to witness it, or?
I think so, and I think, you know, Leros is a small, very peaceful island. You know, you can leave your front door unlocked, and it's quite safe. So actually, what was happening there was something that I don't think anyone had ever seen before. Like, let alone on a small island like that, the circumstances and the sort of the numbers of people was just something that I'd certainly never ever seen anything like that. before.
So why maybe paint more of a picture of Leros for us so we can get the idea of the kind of place it was.
Oh, it's
And then
beautiful.
we can put that picture together with what
Yeah.
we saw, perhaps.
Yeah, so it still is beautiful. it's remote and it's very quiet.
Mm.
And on one side you've got sort of a mountain with an old Byzantine castle at the top, and your pretty sort of idyllic Greek scene of the sort of the white houses trickling down the side. Beautiful, quiet beaches. Just a really quiet place. When I lived there, I had a tab at the supermarket just to sort of pay occasionally. Just to give you an idea of the really slow pace of life and the quietness and the stillness on the island. Like you can find a small bay and not see a soul for the whole day, just be completely sort of remote. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like it so much as a place.
Yeah.
So this was a massive contrast to anything that the island had seen in recent times. In fact, it's got quite an interesting history as an island. It used to have a huge mental asylum over a number of sites where cases from all over Greece used to be sent. And the conditions at the time, this is a while ago, were horrendous. It was exposed on a television program here, and you can still see that on YouTube. And actually, that's really disturbing to see how bad that was. There was also some political detainees on the island. There was also Mussolini based his naval base there during the Second World War. So the island has this reputation as being the island of outcasts, which is really ironic because for a lot of people who have a negative mindset towards refugees and asylum seekers, it sort of continues that reputation, I guess, or that it's had in the past.
Yeah. Okay. That's amazing. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That has that feel to it. So what take us back then? So you've come over the hill and you've arrived. Was this something that had just happened? So people were just beginning to arrive, or had it been happening for weeks before?
No, it happened. It'd been happening for a little while before I arrived, sort of throughout the summer, really. And the unusual thing about Leros at the time was that they rarely had people arriving to the island directly. So sort of between Leros and the Turkish coast, there's a small island called Farmakonisi. It has a small military presence on it. It's not inhabited by civilians. So people arriving there, it was the responsibility of the authorities in Leros to collect people from Farmakonisi. So you didn't have the scenes of people arriving on the beaches like you had in Lesbos and Chios and Samos. It was people that were sort of brought to the island by the authorities. And I remember sitting on the beach and seeing the ship go out and come back and go out and come back. And it was just this constant stream of people arriving, hundreds of people a day sometimes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just gastronomic, the numbers. And I had some friends that from the island that were sort of helping out in the camp to give food and to give clothes and stuff like that. So that's sort of how I got introduced, I guess, to working in the field.
That's an interesting choice though, because I think a lot of people might have gone into that experience. They might have gone to have a look, but they might not necessarily have then continued and thought about helping out. And what was it about that, maybe the first meeting or maybe some experiences after that really drew you into wanting to help? Because it must have been a powerful motive for you to bring you to where we are today.
I can't I'm not a person that ever judges anybody or anything like that, but I can't understand how you couldn't see it and not want to do something to help. Mm-hmm. I mean, the desperation of the people was just so overwhelming, and there's lots of experiences about the time working in the camp that we can chat about later. But I don't know, I was just instantly drawn and just thought we just got to try and do something to help. I mean, people were arriving with wet clothes and nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just sit and watch or know that's going on and not. Yeah.
Not respond.
Mm.
Yeah. Because we, with the work I do with the love stories and creating these spaces where people be together, what I found really interesting and perhaps the most powerful part of those experiences, less the story, it's the space, and it's the offer to hold someone in a space like that, or to be with someone in a space like that. But it's quite a vulnerable space to go into, to hold that for someone. So it's quite a brave thing. It's quite a courageous thing. I think that's why a lot of people don't venture into those more risky spaces for their lives, because it exposes themselves to that kind of experience. Did you feel that at all? Did you feel exposed or vulnerable? Or?
Yeah, a little bit sometimes. I mean, I started to help by volunteering in the mornings and the evenings, and the mood in the yard in the camp there very much depended on the experience people had on pharmaconicity. So, for example, some people might spend a few days there with no food and very little water. Sometimes the water was dirty. There was a small corrugated iron shack in the area that people stayed, and the guys tended to put the ladies and the children in there for shelter. So sometimes you have people arriving sunburnt, but sometimes people were only there for a few hours before they were picked up. So the mood in the camp depended on the experience that the people had had on pharmaconicity.
Okay.
I remember sometimes we'd sort of go into the port police office and come out with a box of clothes, and sometimes you get completely mod. We'd have to take it in because we just couldn't control what was going on, and I think that shows the desperation that sort of people had. There was a small group of local people, as I said, who were sort of paying for some basic food, because there was a couple of times when I was there that the authorities on the island had run out of money. And sort of breakfast consisted of 2 slices of bread and a slice of cheese. Mm-hmm. But you'd get to the bottom of it, you'd have one sandwich left and maybe, quite a few people who didn't have one. And how do you choose who has that? Or in the evenings, some of the representatives from UNHCR would come down with a number of blankets, but there might be more children than there were blankets. So how do you decide that?
How do you decide that?
Yeah, there was a couple of ladies who worked particularly closely, local ladies who worked particularly closely with it and had a sort of a better idea of the most vulnerable cases, and I guess prioritized things like that to those sorts of people. Okay. But to have people beg you for pieces of cardboard to sleep on because this was on concrete in the open air is a very humbling experience.
And did they talk? Because I've previously I've done work in Palestine and Israel, and we used to take over clothes and educational stuff. We'd go for visits, but we'd take over and we'd see a lot of those communities, particularly a lot of the very impoverished sort of communities in the West Bank. And they would say to us, as much as receiving the stuff was really important, for them the most important thing was that we could share the story, that we could tell, because we had the capacity to see how they were living or to see their experience and then share it with others when we went back home. And did you get a sense of that with people you were with at all? Did they want you to share? Did they want to share their story? Did they want you to know who they were and what had happened to them, why they were on the journeys across the sea?
Yeah, so the thing at that time, Greece was like a transit country, so people would typically spend a few days there, be registered, and then make their way on the Balkan route to sort of Northern Europe. Okay. So there was a lot of hope in the camp, and everyone has their story to tell. But you would see, sometimes you didn't need people to tell stories, you could sort of see stuff. So there were people with injuries from the war in Syria, for example. I remember some lads had carried a disabled guy through Turkey to get to Greece. And, there's some of the stories were just incredible. But everyone wanted to tell their story. They wanted to share it. It was, and that's still the case to today. Today, actually,
Yeah.
that people still want to tell their stories, I think.
And did they have a great sense of community amongst the people who had travelled? Were they very much together, or were they in separate sort of units? Did they feel as though they were part of something?
I think perhaps for some, and I think everyone's journeys were different. I remember, and you'll know about Rafiq's story. When I sat and in Athens, and he told me his story and his journey over, and how he was travelling with a family that he hadn't known, but they had some kids, and he'd helped to carry some of their stuff. So I think people did have that. But then there's also, people that were perhaps in a dinghy in the middle of this sea, and it was dangerous, or and how they came together and they prayed together and stuff like that. So I think everyone had different experiences on their journey, depending sort of how they came. I remember one day, Matt, and I'd had a call from a friend saying that there'd been a shipwreck disaster, and about 30 people had lost their lives and had drowned. It was horrific. And I remember being in the camp, actually, when the survivors were brought in. And that's a memory that really sticks in my head. Actually, it was really a difficult thing to experience. I remember a guy who we couldn't communicate verbally because he didn't speak English. He had a couple of young girls, and I think he'd lost his wife. And I sat holding his hand and trying to draw with my other hand with the children to distract them.
Yeah.
So everyone's journeys was different, and another night. So that day was completely bizarre, and seeing people with such shock and trauma. And then there was another day on my birthday when some guy had a sort of guitar thing, and everyone in the camp was singing his songs. It was the most amazing feeling. So every day was different.
Yeah.
And the journeys were different, and people's experiences were different.
Yeah. I guess there's because it's interesting, we're like talking in these opposing screens because we're in this strange kind of communal lockdown where we all talk to each other in these isolated boxes, but we also communicate. So I've been thinking about that a lot in terms of people I've spoken to over the years, talking about their stories and what love stories mean to them. And so much of it is about belonging, how you belong to a place, or how a place is a home, and how much that is wrapped up with how you're received in a place. Because a lot of my journey with stories has been up until now has been walking. A lot of my exploration has been, well, how do communities welcome people in? How do you welcome the guest, or how do you welcome the stranger? How do we express love to those kinds of people? And I've had it expressed in all sorts of different ways, from sort of complete rejection and fear and being pushed away, to the complete opposite, with open arms and love and welcome, and nothing is too difficult. Like they couldn't give me more, And I wonder, how do the people of Leros, because you have this, it seems like a really intimate relationship. So you're an outsider coming into Leros, except that now you're in that community clearly very deeply, and they have all these outsiders coming in traumatic situations, or being really courageous, seeking new lives. And I wonder, how do the people of Leros sort of deal with it all, and how have they been? How have they dealt with this amazing situation that's come to their doorstep that they never asked for?
Yeah, I mean, as there is here, there's some hostility towards the people, but there is that everywhere. You can't get away from that. But I can sort of understand it to a degree for the local people. Their quiet island's been completely transformed, and their lives, in a way, have been completely transformed. Not just for the Greeks on the islands, but also in the cities as well. And I can understand why there would be perhaps some resentment where, Greece, as we all know, has been in horrendous economic situation for a long time now. People seeing people helping these people arriving, but then that isn't reciprocated for the local people. So there was a lot of amazing local people that help, but I would say it's probably mixed.
Okay.
But I think the Greeks have lived with this for a long time, and it's changed a lot of lives and the way of life and stuff. So yeah, I think it's mixed, but I can sort of appreciate both sides of the fence with that, if you like.
I just think it's for what's going on now, and I think what's going to happen in the future, and with the change in the climate, there's going to be millions, hundreds of thousands of refugees from all over the world traveling. So this is going to be a situation that's going to be repeated all over the world in places, and how we respond to that is going to be repeated. So in a way, you have some really powerful insight. Leros is an example of something, for people going through something, and how you work through that. How do you feel in that situation? Do you feel, well, what's your role? Tell me about sort of how it developed, I suppose, from that moment when you first experienced it.
Yeah.
Role come to where you are now with the network, the Aegean Solidarity.
Yes. So for me, it was two main things really. The first thing was how my perception, if you like, and understanding of the situation had done a complete U-turn. So I went there fearful and really scared about the whole thing, and only sort of knowing about the situation, what we'd seen on our media, which was very different to the reality of what was happening. So, for example, the riots we saw of the guys perhaps rattling the fences in cars, what you didn't see was the families behind being protected while these people may have not have eaten for days, or they may have been, there's lots behind the scenes that we weren't privy to and didn't understand, and therefore we drew our conclusions that everyone coming is rioting. So the first thing for me, I guess, was the sort of that, and then the second thing was seeing my friends scraping money together to just provide food, let alone other stuff that was desperately needed. So I came back wanting to do two things. First, try and change people's perception and help people to understand the reality of stuff, and B, to try and raise some money. So I got back, I started a Facebook page to try and do both of those things. Crowdfunding was awesome, went really, really well. And obviously the situation had a lot of media coverage at the time, with the image of Alan Kurdi, the little lad that was tragically washed up on the beach in Turkey. And so the crowdfunding went really well, and the money went to Leros to help. And then, and that was sort of the start of it, really. I got approached. Oh, go on.
I know. I was going to say, remind me how long ago that was.
So that's September 2015.
Okay, 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I remember sitting sometimes in the quiet and then still on the island, really reflecting on this and sort of writing it to express it. And people very close to me said, "God, that wasn't you writing. It wasn't how you normally talk." I think that's just shows how profoundly the whole thing was on me, if that makes sense.
Do you think it tapped into? Obviously, tapped into something a lot deeper. There was you had a
think so.
emotional.
I think so.
Do you feel like it's drawn out something in you that? What am I trying to say? I think we come into experiences in life where you are confronted by something, and it pulls something out of you that allows you to respond to it in a way that perhaps you wouldn't have thought, or you wouldn't have guessed. I mean, where are you now? You know, the journey, on this journey you've come from in the last 5 years. Could you have guessed you are where you are now?
No, absolutely not. And I think everyone who has been involved in it sort of since it all started would say the same sort of things. So, you know, I was approached by a lovely couple in London in early 2016 who'd sort of seen the Facebook page and said, "Have you thought about making a charity?" And I was like, "No, I'd never thought about that." So they helped me get the ball rolling and start all that. But still, I don't think we thought we'd still be here all this time later.
Mm.
So hindsight's a great thing. Would have put a name in the charity name that told people what we did, and a logo that represented a bit more what we do. But we didn't envisage this being such a long-term thing at the time.
Yeah, I guess it's just a human response.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then the charity grows. I suddenly learn about accounting, about social media, about marketing, about budgeting, about strategy, managing trustees and stuff that
yeah,
never really thought of before. But you know, so yeah, it went from there really. So yeah, I didn't envisage this being sort of such a long term.
Yeah. And where is it now? So what's happening now? Because obviously we're somewhere in the middle of this whole crazy lockdown, lock-in, worldwide experience. What's happening in Leros, and what's happening with you and the charity? What's going on?
So it's been amazing really to sort of watch the whole situation evolve, and it evolves all the time. So there was times sort of back end of 2015, for example, where there was ferry strikes and there was a backlog of thousands of people living on the streets, waiting to move on their journey. 2016 in the spring, there was the agreement between the EU and Turkey to try and stem the flow of people coming in. So the situation changed, created these hotspot camps on the 5 of the Greek islands, the main entry points. Leros is one of those. So we adapted to working with that. We started to branch out sort of late 2016, helping elsewhere in Greece, on the mainland, and some of the other islands. For me, it's been really important to form really close working relationships with the groups that we support. So at the time, I saw that there was already sort of small, what we call grassroots groups, if you like, on the ground, able to adapt really quickly to needs as they change and stuff like that. So rather than...
This is local people, yeah? Local.
Not necessarily local people, sometimes local people, sometimes small organisations from other countries.
Yeah.
So rather than reinvent the wheel, why not support sort of groups and organisations that are already doing the work? So that's how we sort of started up. So the situation sort of evolved. Leros has had periods where it's had a high population of people, lower population of people. Sometimes the hotspot's been so overcrowded that people have been living in the hills around it. Sometimes the population's gone down a little bit. So it changes all the time. And without wanting to go too much into politics and stuff, there's a shift now in the sort of response. So we're expecting a lot of people to be evicted from accommodations and stuff like that, as sort of a harder line is taken towards these people.
Okay. And where do you see the work going for the next 6 months, and what would you... I don't know, I think with work, when you're doing work like that, and with the work I do with story, and when it's powerful work, when you're talking about people and these vulnerable people, it's really impassioned work, isn't it? And how do you feel about it? These people, is this story still being heard by people? Do you think it's something that's disappeared? Do you think people have become sort of inured to it, so they don't feel it anymore?
Yeah.
How do it seem to you?
I think so, and it's been going on a long time, and on social media I'm saying the same stuff 5 years later.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there is a lot of fatigue with it. public opinion sort of goes up and down. We're already talking to a fairly small audience of people that are sort of empathise towards the situation. So, well, just repeat your question, Matt. Sorry, I went off my
no,
thread.
we can just sort of carry on really, which is how can you build that empathy?
Yeah.
What can we do, or we do? How can we mobilise people to respond? Because essentially, you see what happens if there's a lady next door in the middle of a pandemic and you know she's on her own and you can call her and see if she wants food, you can visualise it. I think sometimes when things are hidden in the distance, it's easy to forget about them because you've got enough going on with your own days. I wonder how can we empathise? How can we allow people to connect more and respond more? What do you think answers are?
It's really hard, and you know, people now arriving their situations ever so precarious. You know, will they be granted asylum? Will they be deported to Turkey? So we even, and obviously the GDPR laws that came in a few years ago, we don't publish people's images that can identify people unless we've got their explicit permission. So actually, telling those stories is really hard now because you haven't got those images which people can look at and perhaps a little bit identify with or see and sort of sympathise with. So it's really tricky now, actually.
Yeah, figures are really dehumanising, aren't they? But an image or a story or a voice, then we can respond because we can understand. We can see ourselves as a person. Yeah.
And then another big challenge for us is the lack of coverage by the media here. So, you know, I still get asked by people, "Was that all still going on in Greece?" Like, my gosh, yeah. Back end of last year, saw arrivals pick right up again. So there's somewhere over 120,000 refugees and asylum seekers in the country now, and the island camps are far, far, far over capacity. So people, because it's out of the media, it's sort of a little bit perhaps people have forgotten about it, and as you say, become immune to these sorts of things.
So maybe there's a need to find a way to tell the stories. That's one thing. I wonder how can people help? So how could people help now? If they, you know, how many people are sort of in Leros at the moment and on the islands? How many people are coming in every day? And how could someone like me, someone who maybe doesn't have very much money because they just lost their job, they're furloughed somewhere in Surrey, what can we do? How can we help, do you think? How can we respond to what we're doing?
Over the last 5 years, I've found that Facebook seems to be the easiest medium to share news stories, updates about what's going on. So a follow's always good on Facebook. But for people to sort of tap into some of those articles or read little bits and just sort of find out the reality of what's going on, and sharing that, and for me, my biggest message would be that these are human beings. Like, these are, like, you know, you see an older chap and you think, oh, that could be my dad, or a little baby, you think that could be my godson, or a young lady, that could be my sister. These are normal people, and to try and get rid of some of those stereotypes. So you probably heard people say, "Oh, they're coming with smartphones." Well, of course they're coming with smartphones. You know, Syria's not a third world country. Iran's not a third world country. If I had to get out quick, the first thing I would take would be my smartphone, because that has my life on it. And they're also vital tools for people to navigate and keep in touch with family and friends that are abroad. So sort of understanding the reasons why things are and trying to sort of nip out some of those stereotypes.
Yeah. So again, you're still, in a way, the work you're doing is the same. You're trying to educate,
you
know, and demystify that situation. And can people give? Have you got like specific giving campaigns at the moment? Can people?
Yeah. So we've just done a quite a cool thing in Leros. So we've helped to fund a water pipe from the desalination unit on the island to the hotspot camp to bring water. I mean, a few months ago, there was sort of one hose out the back of the camp for how many people were trying to access it. It was just crazy. So this is life-changing for a lot of people. So yeah, we try and reach as many people in the most diverse ways as possible, sort of throughout the country. So things from proper food for kids' art workshops to we fund a rent for a flat for a vulnerable family in Athens. All sorts of stuff. So the more we have, the more we can help, the more we can respond, and we're always looking for how else we can help and make a difference.
Amazing.
So we're always very grateful for monetary donations, and the charity is voluntary run, right? So our running costs are minimal. Last year, 3% was on sort of administrative stuff, so that meant 97p in every pound went to make a difference. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Mm.
That's great. I just so people can go to your Facebook, they can check you out there, they can like, they can share, they can maybe there's some stories that could be shared and told. Any other ways they can communicate, they can get in touch?
And if you check out our websites, that's asnteamuk.org. Mm-hmm. There's email address there, contact, so that comes through to me, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay. Or if anyone wants to find out more, I'm happy to sort of do that. You can find out a bit more about what we do and how we work on the website as well, whereas the social media platforms are more about what's happening right now and sort of real-time updates, if you like.
That's right. And we so I spent I spent most of last year and a bit of the year before sort of sharing and putting together a collection of stories from around the world that were about motherhood, sense of motherhood, beyond sort of nationality and gender or any kind of stereotypes or any kind of boundaries. How do we experience mother in our life? How does that find form? And it just feels to me, just thinking about it, that sort of you have a sense of motherhood in motherhood is about holding and nurturing. It's about creating. So you've created this space with other people, with local people and people here, to hold and to nurture people in a really vulnerable space in their life. And I guess it was just the last walk, but I wonder how that feels for you now. Do you feel?
I think it's two-way. So, for example, there was a lovely family I met in 2016 in Laos in Syria. The couple had a curtain factory business. They got two young daughters, privately educated, spoke fluent English. You wouldn't even tell they weren't from the UK. Their English was that amazing. And they're in Germany now, and I went to see them. And when I went to see them, they were in a sort of a camp arrangement, if you like, in Germany. And they put on this massive spread of food just because I was coming. Mm-hmm. I mean, how amazing, how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And another chap that I've met in Laos asked me to be, who I'd been to see in Germany a few times, asked me to be his best man at his wedding in Germany earlier this year. How beautiful is that? So it's two-way.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So it's like a mutual journey. You're holding.
Yeah, I think so.
And going through that.
I think so.
Oh, that's amazing. So.
But I would say really quickly, I've met some of the most beautiful, generous, wonderful people ever on this sort of journey doing this work.
Yeah.
I mean, it draws nice people, lovely people who are coming to help. And that's nice. But you're also meeting these beautiful people that their lives have massively changed. And the relationships you form with these people, I can't describe it, it's really strange.
Yeah.
Really strong relationships through really short time of meeting or short time together, because I think you share that connection somehow.
Yeah.
Yes, it's beautiful.
I remember when I started when I was trying to describe the work I was doing when I began with the human love story. People said, "Well, why love stories?" And I said, "Well, essentially, a love story is just about a moment when we deeply and really truly connect with someone on a really visceral level, you know, and in that space we really connect, and you can really share, and in that sharing you build community, because community is just, it comes from the Greek word communitas, which means just sharing feelings and emotion. So I really get that, because I've sat with people on the side of the road for 5-10 minutes, and we've talked more deeply than I have when I've spoken with some family members I've known for 44 years. You know, because in that, if the space is held, if there's love and compassion in that place, then you can really know, because you allow yourself to open out, and you can really be seen and see each other. So I really get that. You can live a lifetime in an hour and know people in such a profound way. So it's really great. So, I mean, we could talk forever, which I love, but maybe so give us the details. So for whoever's watching this, and if you are watching this, if you have a moment, even if it's like a message or a post or a share, everything counts. Like when I was in Palestine, when I was in Kenya, it counts. It really makes a difference when people feel that their voice is heard. So, but how can people, let's hear it again, what can they do? What's the website? How can they?
So Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, it's at ASN Team UK.
ASN Team UK. Okay.
And the website asnteamuk.org.
Okay. Beautiful.
Thank you, Matt.
I mean, we're friends. I have, what you do is amazing, and I find it completely inspiring all the time. So, and it's such a heart project, and I think nowadays the only work of any relevance any of us can do is stuff that's led from our heart and is out in the world. And if you can just help one person through a moment of difficulty in their life, then that's, for me, that's a life well lived. So I think what you're doing is magical. So I'm going to thank you on behalf of everyone who's watching this for your magnificent work. It's really beautiful.
Cheers, Matt.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.